simple. Why is Gen Z obsessed with nostalgia? I would not even like call this nostalgia, because like when I look at this nostalgia, I think of like reminiscing of a like a past time or like a past experience, and like putting it like in a positive light, even if it wasn't that like something that is like super special or super positive. How would I put this? I think Gen Z's problem, and I do consider there's a difference where I would make like there's like a difference in like age. Do early Zoomers experience this kind of nostalgia that he's probably going to talk about? Sure. Are late Zoomers going to like have the hello Chanel, how are you doing? Are late Zoomers are late Zoomers experiencing the same nostalgia as early Zoomers? I don't think so. I think that the nostalgia that like late Zoomers experience is more like a technology burnout, as I would consider it. That is what I would say. It's more like a technology burnout. As for me, I would consider 2001 late Zoomer, early Zoomer, because I experienced a time without like the internet still. I would say that yeah, I am kind of obsessed with nostalgia, because like when we look at video games, for example, all the video games were just better. When I was 10 years old, all the video games were just better. They just were better. And like music was also better. Like a lot of things were better. So yeah, let's see what Cole Hastings is gonna talk about. So yeah, let's get into it. You tell me if stuff is gonna be too loud or not or whatever. Let me do this. I think this might be good. Nice. Let me jump in. And yeah, let's go.
Entire man caves dedicated to retro games. A 30th anniversary limited edition PS5 Pro with an old school design coming in November. And a single Pokemon card that's...
That PlayStation was gone immediately. Straight up immediately. And the scalpers went absolutely insane. And I've said it before. I think I've said it before what I think of scalpers. They are the lowest of the low. They are cockroaches, because like you just have to look at like the PlayStation 5 Pro in that design. If like the PlayStation 5 Pro did release in that design, I don't know. $5,000 and up. And like same goes for the controller, by the way. So yeah.
Sold for over $5 million. What do all these things have in common? A heavy infatuation with nostalgia. Millennials and Gen Z cannot get enough of items that remind them of their past, when times were simpler and your biggest worries consisted of what movie you would be renting from Blockbuster.
Again, I do not consider this I don't think like the 12-year-old or 13 or 15-year-old Zoomer is like reminiscing over like past time. I think this is like a thing from like 1995 to 2003. I would say I have a younger brother who's like from 2000, who was born in 2004, and he's basically like he's like a full-on Zoomer, and I'm acting more like a millennial, if anything. Like a mix between like a zillennial, if that makes sense.
That weekend. Nostalgia has always been a powerful force for marketing new products, but never has it reached a level of obsession as it has with today's younger generations. So let's rewind the clock and explore the concept of nostalgia, why it's so influential, and why this fixation on the past could cause serious problems for our future. What exactly is nostalgia anyways? To some it might be the warm feeling you get when reminiscing on your youth. To others it might feel like regret from not realizing what you had until it's gone. But the most accurate definition would probably combine both of these experiences. The term nostalgia actually comes from the Greek words nostos, which means a desire to return home, and algos, which means pain. It is an oxymoron of feelings, like a fire that can both comfort you and burn you depending on how close you get to it. And there's an important reason why it exists in all of us. Christine Baccio, a psychology professor at Lemoyne College.
Goddamn, we went straight up into a like explanation of the word. Okay.
Has been studying
I tried to keep
nostalgia
up.
since the 1990s. It's even led her to develop a nostalgia inventory that assesses how prone you are to nostalgia. She's discussed her findings with a couple different outlets that you can find online now, like the American Psychological Association and the National Geographic, and in those posts, she highlights the importance of nostalgia from an evolutionary perspective. One of the biggest reasons we feel nostalgia is because it helps to unite a sense of who we are and our identities over time. Who we consider ourselves to be can change so much even over
Maybe. Maybe. Kinda. I mean, if you think like about the past and like you look at yourself and how like you look back at who you were, and like if you're like now in like a bad spot and you look like back and you realize that, like, I don't know, maybe you can go back to that. I don't know, maybe.
the course of just a few years, and this subconsciously terrifies us. Humans naturally want to be in control of their surroundings, and especially themselves, and by inducing nostalgia within us, our brains help to remind us of who we have been and compare that to who we are today to look for continuity, because continuity in our identity signals some sort of control. The added benefit of this is that it also influences us to increase our authenticity. By reminiscing on our youth with admiration, we realign with our childlike confidence to be who we truly were before the world told us who we were. Nostalgia is also an extremely social emotion because it helps connect us to other people. I'm sure many young people watching this can feel the sense of community that comes from
Sure, yeah. I mean, if you like talk about like your favorite video game, other might have like the same feelings towards the video game. Sure, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
watching Instagram reels or TikToks that depict what life was like in the 2000s or even early 2010s and reading all the comments about where the time has gone and how
I still have an old TV like that. I don't know if that TV is still functional. Probably. Though I don't know if the bigger one is actually functional. I know that the smaller one is probably functional, but the bigger one, I don't know. But yeah, I still have like these big TVs.
how they wish they could be transported back to that time period. And God only knows the things I would do just to hear a Modern Warfare 2 lobby in my cheap $20 headset one more time.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything nostalgic about, you know, hearing slurs through your like cheap headset. I don't know. I don't know. Probably.
Nostalgia is part of what bonds us to the most important people and memories in our lives. Without those memories, we'd never know where those bonds came from, and this can actually act as a great boost to our well-being, according to research. But the positive benefits of nostalgia actually don't stop there. Research has also found that nostalgia can boost inspiration and creativity, make us feel more youthful, alert, optimistic, and energetic, and even encourage us to take risks and pursue our goals. It's clear that nostalgia for our past is
like I said, you can like you look like back at who you were and like who you could be again, and like, yeah, I guess it makes sense. Let's say it makes
making
sense.
us want to continue on in this life. When we can look back at how far we've come and appreciate the journey, even though that appreciation will most likely come with the ever-looming knowing that you'll never be able to relive those memories again, that is when nostalgia acts as a positive force for change. But the problem arises when you're stuck in a singular phase of nostalgia, the phase that is most closely associated with that ever-looming knowing.
Now make all your cakes extra special.
You can get 12 fascinating issues of Zoobook.
Chef Boyardee. Boy.
I do have to say, I'll be real. I do have to say, ads back then were much better. Like, I look at like I put like an old like VHS like into my recorder, video recorder, whatever you want to call it, And like I play that thing, and like there's also ads recorded on it, like, and their ads were like insane. The quality of like of those ads were insane. Like the ads themselves were like fun to watch. Today they're more like annoying, but back then they were like really like funny even, and like entertaining.
Boy, this stuff is good.
Do you want the taste of mother's warm cooking on a cold winter's night, just like when you were a kid? Well, it all comes down to recreating that signature taste. So allow me to prepare a delicious home-cooked meal for you while explaining the sponsor of today's video, Graza.
Of course,
Graza
it's the
is the
sponsor.
highest quality olive oil at an affordable everyday price. It comes from a single origin in Jaén, Spain. You know how I referred to nostalgia as an evolutionary process? Yeah, well, unfortunately that means nostalgia also comes pre-installed with a bit of delusion to help us survive. You may have heard of the term looking through
I've never heard it being said like that. Nostalgia comes pre-installed with a little bit of delusion. That is pretty good, actually. That is pretty good.
rose-colored glasses before, and that's exactly what nostalgia is most of the time. When our brains recall past memories, they purposefully leave out most of the negative experiences of that memory as a means of survival. A good example of this is why you might think of a previous relationship that ended in brutal heartbreak with tender fondness. If you saw your past relationship for more of what it actually was, a never-ending string of arguments and disagreements, you may not have the optimism to try for love again, or even life in general. Sometimes it is the case that past memories of things like relationships are so bad that you become permanently turned off from the idea of pursuing another one. But more often than not, especially a few months post-breakup, our brain starts to conjure up a romanticized
That's me. Not the romanticized version, but the guy that no longer wants to try because shit is scary.
version of what life was like during that time with that person as a means to motivate us to keep moving forward. Yes, the past is often not as good as we thought it was, but
I guess I was both. However, we never had fights or anything, so like, kind of not, kind of not romanticized, because like this happened out of nowhere.
what happens when your present reality has no evidence that things are going to get better anytime soon? Well, that's when you start heavily relying on escaping to this romanticized past. And can you guess when this has been most apparent in recent years? 2020, of course. A study in 2022 was conducted to show the relationship between nostalgic media use, escapism, and well-being during the COVID-19 pandemic. And they concluded that nostalgic media usage did increase during the pandemic, was positively associated with fear of isolation, and that it was related to both functional and dysfunctional escapism. Nostalgia is one of the
I'll be real. When others struggled during like the pandemic, I was thriving. Grades got better. I got more time for myself. I finally started losing weight. Like it was crazy. It was crazy. You cannot tell me that. At least for some people, it did certainly have a positive effect. Certainly. And like because it really changed nothing. Like I was spent most of my days at home during like 2020, and like before that already, so like it didn't make much of a difference.
most influential ways in which we cope with social isolation and disconnectedness, because it helps with that identity continuity that I referenced
I did not
earlier.
have that.
When the world stopped and the young generations were no longer capable of maturing into adulthood like generations past, they looked to the past to confirm the continuation of their identity. Now,
I'm gonna be honest. Most adults aren't adults. Most adults are grown-up children. Most of the time. Like, I've seen 35-year-old boys. And, like, 35-year-old girls. Like, no. I think nowadays, like, even without the pandemic, you don't really, like... A lot of people don't really grow up. Because, like... What makes somebody grow up? I would say it's taking responsibility for someone other than yourself, I think, is what makes somebody like grow up.
Not only that, but by escaping to a time period where a crisis as heavy as COVID wasn't going on, they could cope with the disastrous effects.
Which is why I never really felt like I had a childhood, because I had to grow up super fast and I had to take responsibility for others.
Effects it was having on the world. And this is where the problem of too much nostalgia starts to come to light, when it is no longer motivating you to create a better future, but rather convinces you that the only good future lies in the past. Consumer Insights platform found that Gen Z are the most nostalgic, with 15% feeling that they'd prefer to think about the past rather than the future. Millennials aren't much further behind at 14%, and the preference continues to taper off with age. Gen Z and millennials are driving nostalgia in the media too. Gen Z are in the lead again, with 50% of this generation feeling nostalgic for types of media, followed by 47% of millennials. So although every generation has nostalgia for their adolescent years, it's really Gen Z that is driving the trend today. And
because most modern media today sucks. Look at Ubisoft. It sucks. Look at Star Wars. It sucks. Look at Sony. A lot of it sucks. Look at TV shows. A lot of it sucks. Like, when you look at media, like, look at the PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 5 sucks. It does not have any games on it. Like I said, there's a reason for that nostalgia. Everything sucks. Marvel sucks. DC, kinda okayish. It's kinda an okayish spot, but it's also certainly going that way.
the reason why this shouldn't be surprising, especially if you are Gen Z. The pandemic disrupted our early development, the way we interact with each other at both school and our jobs, and sped up every form of wealth inequality. All natural disasters and crises, on top of COVID, are now being broadcast through social media and other mainstream media sources, causing an onslaught of negative information overload. So for the younger generations, a time that appeared to be simpler, calmer, full of more joy.
Would I say there's a negative, like, information overload? Yes. Is that due to, like, the pandemic? No. I would say it's due to the fact that negative news and like negative information gets the most attention. There is a reason why when you turn on the TV and you look like at any news show, for example here in Germany, they only report on the negative stuff. There is nothing positive. Only negative. The negativity is pushed already. Like, this didn't just happen like during like the pandemic. This happened like before that already.
And less technology is a refuge for.
You could say that the consumption of negative information was exacerbated because of the pandemic. I would agree with that.
For a bleak present and potential future. But here's where it gets really interesting. What GWI also found is that a third of Gen Z are nostalgic for the 90s, despite the majority being born in the 2000s. And this is where I would like to introduce a new form of nostalgia that I haven't yet addressed: historical nostalgia. Unlike personal nostalgia, which is a longing for or feeling good about aspects of your life that you've already lived through and have stored in your memory, historical nostalgia is oriented towards nostalgia for history and society over the years, even if you've never lived in that time period. One of the most concrete examples of how this phenomenon of historical nostalgia plays.
I consider this to be technology burnout. I think that actually like describes it really well, because consider this. A lot of Zoomers reminisce about the 90s. Why is that? Because the 90s were simpler.
Plays out
At least that's
is
my
in
opinion.
Old music, and more specifically, Japanese 80s city pop. I'm a huge fan of this type of music, and I'll often spend hours playing it in the background depending on what I'm working on. And on almost every one of these videos on YouTube that are a Japanese city pop playlist, you're bound to find a comment that goes something along the lines of, this brings back nostalgia for a time I never experienced. Young people often go so far into this that they can create entirely fake memories of them living and enjoying their lives in the 80s without having ever actually experienced it before. As a British kid born in 2004, this really reminds me of strutting down the streets in Shinjuku in 1982 with my childhood sweetheart Sakura Momoka. We went to the city for a date and had the best udon of our lives. The present moment has gotten so
Why did he read that extra British? That's interesting.
unbearable for a lot of Gen Z that they're not even looking at the past with rose-colored glasses. They're looking at the past with alternate reality glasses. Because of economic hardships, technology, uncertainty, and a disdain for the present, I highly doubt that historical nostalgia in this way was as prominent in the past as it is today. As humans, we've always had a knack for escaping to and creating fantasy worlds, but consumerism has allowed us to make those escapism dreams into more of a reality. And companies are starting to tap into this psychological phenomenon in droves.
You can like just literally look at games, and I have my cat is sneezing. That's interesting. Bro, you good? When I look at, like, for example, like games today, the reason why people have started to play older games, first of all, the modern games aren't good. I think it's more like an anime boy's wet dream. Yeah, also true. Yeah, that could also be it. What was I trying to say? Thank you for the sub! What happened? Who is that? I can't see it. Let me look. Sephoria Duta? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I can perfectly like pronounce it. Anyways, what I was trying to say. Now I forgot the thought. See, now I forgot the thought. Your cat sneezed today too. Yeah. Great. Now I forgot the thought. Anyways, yeah, I completely forgot it. Continue. Maybe I'll think about it again.
All the largest brands in the world now have entire teams of psychologists and marketers who acutely understand the power of nostalgia and are using it to fuel.
Yeah, when it comes to video games, I think when I got annoyed with what burn out of video games was when the PlayStation 3 came around and we were pushing more and more for realistic graphics. That eventually did not feel like I was escaping reality, but I was just constantly I wasn't even able to like free myself from reality and just shut off because like the games look super realistic. And like the PlayStation 3 like didn't have like super realistic, but I think that's like when it started like with the PlayStation 4 and then obviously now with the 5. Yeah, that's when it got a problem for me.
Their commodity campaigns. A study by consulting firm Kantar found 52% of 12 to 29-year-old consumers prefer classic brands. 81% of those young consumers also said they like it when brands bring back products and trends from their childhood. How is this playing itself out? Well, apart from the examples that I gave in the intro, other brands are now dipping their feet into the retro era selling point. Pepsi recently updated their logo to a style that was first unveiled in the 1970s.
Well, there's a good reason why people why it makes sense. I mean, look at Nintendo. There's a reason there's a lot of remakes. There's a reason there's a lot of remasters. There is a reason why we get like mini consoles for like the Super Nintendo Mini. I mean, like eventually they will make a Nintendo 64 Mini. The market is there. There's a reason for the PlayStation 1 design pushed onto the PlayStation 5. So there's a good reason. It makes money.
Brands was recently acquired for $4.6 billion, reflecting the pandemic-driven popularity of retro snacks like Twinkies, which first sold in 1930. 90s and Y2K fashion has also been making a big comeback. Fashion houses like Givenchy and Bottega Veneta featured 1990s grunge fashions.
I don't know about that one, Chief. I don't know about that one. I have never seen somebody walk around and like this, like stuff like that. I don't know about that one.
Recent runway shows, and Levi's last year re-released its silver tab baggy jean, popular in the hip-hop and skating culture days of the 1990s. But perhaps the most popular use of market-driven nostalgia that's happened in recent years was the Barbie movie that came out in 2023. It generated
which was kind of a failure considering that Barbie was the main character, but everyone liked Ryan Gosling. Which is interesting to see that like, yeah. He was the star of the movie, not is she called Margot Robbie? I don't know. Could be.
Over
Could be wrong.
$1.4 billion in the box office, and is expected to boost Mattel's profits by $125 million.
And I mean, don't mean like a financial failure. I mean like a the message that the movie tried to convey basically failed because everyone was memeing about Ryan Gosling. So yeah.
Sales from toys and merch. As the present and future continues to hold no promises of a better life, more and more people will try to find a way to live as close as possible to an alternate time. I mentioned earlier that feelings of nostalgia most commonly come with rose-colored glasses, and that the past is often not as good as we thought it was. But I think this huge boom in the nostalgia market should be more of a warning than anything that the present moment might very well be objectively worse than other
How could this be a negative? We also have people who are nostalgic for the 90s. I don't know why. It was the worst time in the last 40 years. Yeah, I think what I'm really nostalgic about is just like the 2000s to like from 2000 like 2000 and I think like up to 2010, 2015. Because like those were the times where like most things were fine, I would say. At least like here in Germany, there were no any big issues. Like there were no like there was no problems with like illegal immigration. There was no problem with like financially no problems. There were like games were good, music was good. Yeah, I guess that's my time. Like, but like yeah, I think like the 90s. It depends on like where you lived, I would say.
time periods.
But again, how could this be a negative? It could be a negative in the sense that people wish to bring back a time, like old times, and not like create better times for the future. So like a little bit of like regression in a sense, if that makes sense.
Even if you take away the fact that we like to filter out the negative memories of our past. At face value, I know all this can seem quite grim, but I also genuinely think that this trend reveals something hopeful for the future. You see, Gen Z millennials don't just get attached to nostalgic items because they evoke a feeling of calmness, comfort, identity, and community. They also value the attention to detail and positive progress that those items possess or represent. The best way I can explain this to you is through something I have a deep passion for: the computer game RuneScape and how it's evolved over the years. RuneScape is a point-and-click RPG game that has been around.
Yeah, that looks old. That looks old, yeah. If they made Final Fantasy 11, and like Final Fantasy 11 is also pretty old, like the obviously the MMORPG. If this was more accessible, I would really love to get into it. But I heard also that like getting into it is super difficult. Because like there's like a huge problem with like first of all like getting access to like actually playing it. So like yeah, I think that's a little bit of a problem. I would love to play it there in the future if I can.
Since 2001, but people usually consider the golden era of the game to be from around 2005 to 2007, when player counts peaked. Eventually, like most other companies, Jagex, the company behind the game, focused more on increasing profits rather than improving upon what already worked. They introduced microtransactions in the form of wheel spins and a brand new combat system. This effectively killed their game around 2012, causing nearly half of the player base to quit. But in 2013, a petition started to bring back the 2007 version of the game after Jagex said they had found a backup of it and were
Yeah, old school RuneScape in this case.
Considering creating servers for it if enough people signed the petition. The signatures far surpassed the required amount to make it happen, and on February 22nd, 2013, the old school RuneScape servers officially opened up. The current version of RuneScape from the past, with all those crappy updates, still exists on separate servers, and it's now called RuneScape 3, but old school RuneScape still has more concurrent players than it over 10 years since its release. Why? Because old school RuneScape has stayed true to its roots, while still providing updates for the game that are voted on by the players themselves. So while it is no longer the exact game it once was in 2007, it still contains its core elements, but with modern updates, which is what most people really wanted out of the game as it moved forward in development. I
can certainly understand that. Yeah. I can understand why it'd be so popular. I mean, a lot of the people that like played it are already like an older generation of players, and the same people that like left the game have now returned, and like they are playing the older preferred style of the game. I can 100% understand that.
This long-winded gaming history lesson not just to shove my passion down your throat. Pause. I do it to highlight how
Pause.
this applies to our infatuation with nostalgia and how this reflects our overall attitude to how products are made now. Things really were simpler and often made better with more intention in the past. A lot of things were made with meticulous passion rather than a focus on the bottom line profits. More things felt creative and
Video games were made by gamers and not by like corporate fools who have never played a video game in their life, have never programmed for a video game, have never designed for a video game. If we take video games.
Innovative without trying to get you to buy something and compete for your attention at every second. And if we can start to revert back to some of those principles of the past and apply them to modern day products,
we can go back to one principle that I would like I would love for people to push, and like especially gamers. Physical media. I would love for the people to push again for physical media. So we are now able to not only own a license to play a game. Remember, Steam now officially states that if you buy a game, you do not own it, you only own a license to play it, which means that Steam, if it does fall into the wrong hands, they can take away your games at any time. I would love to go back to like the 2010s, 2012, 13, 14, where like most games were still physical.
Just like old school RuneScape did, we can create more of the things that these younger generations are really looking for when they turn to nostalgia, which is an emphasis on authenticity, passion, intention, and positive progress. This is also another key reason why people loved the Barbie movie so much. It wasn't just appealing to the women who grew up with Barbie, it also portrayed Barbie using the progress that has been made with the image of women since Barbie was first released. It's a theme I'm constantly promoting in my videos, taking everything that was positive and useful about the past, improving upon those things, and leaving behind what clearly didn't work. And if that is what we can start...
Yeah, but what's left of that movie? What is actually left of that movie besides the memes? It may have been a financial success, but it was definitely not a cultural success. Because like aside from like Ryan Gosling memes, there's nothing left, realistically.
Learning from nostalgia commodities, instead of solely using them as a way to profit off of miserable people trying to escape a murky future, then maybe commodifying nostalgia isn't all too bad of an idea. I like discussing topics that pertain to modern issues and how we can solve these issues with nice.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good video. So here's my opinion, okay? We should go back to like positive aspects of the past that are like better than they currently are. For example, video games, music, the passion of creating things, I would say, it is like gone today, and like reminiscing about that and trying to bring it back, I think is a good idea. It's just when you trade in things like from the past for like positive development in the future. I think that's where it's wait. That is where it becomes dangerous, in my opinion.